Holy smokes, we're finally getting a new Geo character. We haven't had any since Yunjin released a jaw-dropping 1 year and 11 months ago. And we haven't had a Geo 5-star since Arataki Ito over 2 years ago. His drip marking was revealed when I first started playing. It's no secret that Geo has had some problems fitting into the meta cohesively. Will Navia be able to fix that? Well, I'm not sure about that, but I do think she'll be a really strong unit and will likely have a ton of future potential while also being strong at launch. So let's get into everything we know, everything that was released during the live stream, as well as everything we don't know and that we'll still have to test. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Just as a fair warning, I will be using clips from today's live stream, so if you don't want to see any trailer footage, then you'll just have to listen to the video with your eyes closed. Navia is, of course, a Geo Claymore user, and most of Kit focuses around her elemental skill. It has a tap and hold mode, and while she's in the hold mode, you collect elemental shards created by crystallized reactions, and then fire shots that deal varying power depending on how many crystallized shards you consume. This skill looks to have a huge multiplier and do big nuke damage. It looks to be relatively single target, and the cool thing about this playstyle is it makes her very quick swappy. You don't have to stay on her for a full duration. You can swap in and out of her and other supports and other DPSs, making her viable either as a main DPS or an on-field DPS, as well as a sub-DPS. Her burst is going to be the primary way that you create those crystallized shards. She creates these cannons which fire at all the enemies and target to them specifically. She gains charges for her skill as well as creating crystallizes, so you want to make sure that you have enough energy to spam this burst on cooldown. It looks like its damage isn't as significant as the skill, but it will be a very important part in making her skill do more damage. She has the passive that gives us more rewards for being on a Fontaine expedition. Finally, we can have a full squad of increased rewards expedition characters. Thank goodness. Her passives that matter a little bit more for combat. The first does a Geo infusion for her normal attacks, which is going to be good for weaving in to create more crystallized shards, as well as allowing you to play her as a bit more of an on-field DPS. And since this is just a passive, she's very quick swappy, so you don't have to stay on her for a super long time. You can swap in and out of her and use her normal attacks as you see fit. She also gains an additional attack buff for each Pyro, Electro, Cryo, or Hydro party member, so she's meant to be played with different elements that can react with Crystallize, which makes sense. And that reminds me, she's an attack scaling Geo character. So rather than being defense scaling, which is what felt like the Genshin was doing with Noelle, with Goro, and with Ito, she's actually more like Ningguang, or like Geo Traveler, I guess, who actually scale with attack. So although she will want to use other Geo characters to have Geo resonance, probably Zhongli, maybe Albedo, maybe you can use Ningguang or Geo Traveler as well, but she will want to use other Geo partners. She won't want to use someone like Goro because she doesn't benefit from that defense scaling. Kind of weird. I kind of think I would have preferred to see her be defense scaling so that she could take advantage of Goro, but I mean, I guess that, and then usually when you're defense scaling, you have higher innate multipliers. This kind of makes the biggest problem I have with this, and this is where we'll kind of get into the potential issues I have with her kit. It highly incentivizes playing her with Bennett. You basically don't play attack scalers without Bennett unless you're doing really powerful reactions that make up for it. And she definitely scales with attack, and being Geo doesn't rely on reactions to do anything except for create those crystallized shards for her skills. So being attack scaling, I feel like she's going to be tied to Bennett's hip, which isn't the best. And when you're tied to Bennett's hip, you know, is she going to be played with Xiangling? Is that going to be one of her best teams? It's not so bad because we've kind of figured out now, if you build Bennett for more healing, it's not so bad. So unlike other characters who want to stay on one character for a longer time, you will be punished much less for switching off of her to switch to Bennett for multiple teams. So like if you use her with Fischl, I don't know, you can make sure you always snapshots Fischl's skill. If you use her with Farina, you can make sure to cycle through your different characters to give everyone some healing without losing that buff for your main carry. So her kit definitely has some upsides, but also this quick swappy playstyle isn't something that benefits and synergizes with with a whole lot of characters. Like, ideally, you'd want to use her with someone like Yai, who spends some field time to do stuff, but they don't really have that good of synergy together. Yai really wants to be used with Dendro, and Navia really doesn't want to be used with Dendro, and that's pretty much the same with Fischl. I think she'll be in a case where she's a very strong option for a lot of different teams. Like, I could see her pairing well with Novelette, who can also swap around different characters, and you can use Novelette, Farina, Navia, and like maybe Jean or maybe Bennett as well. I'm really not sure. I'm very interested to see what kind of teams will actually make with her. I really feel like there's more coming. I feel like that she is released as the beginning of a new archetype for Geo, and I think we're gonna have more Geo coming in the future, or at least more characters that synergize directly with this type of playstyle, because Novelette also has this type of playstyle where he swaps in and out. He doesn't need to stay in for a super long time. Like, Novelette's not quite the same because he has to actually use his full charge attack, but you don't have to use the whole duration of charge attacks. You can swap off and do stuff. The other thing with Navia is that she doesn't use Kazuha or other Anemo characters, so I definitely can see her being used well with Farina. Yeah, I think there's going to be those main two ways to play her when we're looking at teams, is as a sub-DPS on something like Novelette, where you use Archaic Petra as a buffing artifact set to buff Farina and to buff Novelette, and then you use Jean, and that's kind of how you run that, or as like a dual DPS, or as a main DPS that you focus on, hyper buffing with Bennett. And I think they'll all be viable, and I think that's really cool for a Geo unit who are historically restricted into one team comp. I think her personal scalings will make it feel like she's viable in all these different areas. Some people don't like that. Characters like Ayato are like this, where they work in a ton of different scenarios but are not really optimal in any of them. I'm kind of thinking that Navia might end up there, but it's kind of hard to say at this point until we actually test her. If she does end up there, I'm of two minds about that, right? Because on one hand, I really like optimality, but on the other hand, the more characters that get revealed, the less I kind of care about optimality actually, because there's so many characters. Not everyone can be optimal. What matters is that they just feel powerful. Do these teams all feel good, or they kind of feel lacking? Because there's flexibility feeling powerful and flexibility feeling lacking. And as long as her scalings are high enough that even if she isn't optimal in every team, if she's powerful in every team or lots of teams, then that's enough for me. In terms of build guide, as I said, she is a Claymore user and she's skill based, so Serpent Spine should be really excellent on her. Obviously, I'm sure her signature weapon will be the best. For artifact sets, I'm sure the Maréchaussée Hunter will be excellent when she's in Farina teams, but since she's mostly built on skill damage, I wonder how good the Wanderers, or not the Wanderers troop, the Golden troop will be. Seems like it should at least be solid if you have a good set already. Obviously, the new Geo set that's coming out with her will be the best set, giving her a lot of Geo damage bonus. That's going to be her best set, but until people can farm that up, utilizing Golden Troop, utilizing Maréchaussée, and until she's released, I'm actually going to be farming up some Archaic Petra. Hopefully I'll be able to get a solid and usable Archaic Petra artifact set, both to test on Noelle, sorry. I've got Zenla Zone Zero on the brain. By the way, if you're interested in Zenla Zone Zero, I have a full review of my experience with the closed beta test on my second channel. I'll link it in the pinned comment. Please go check it out. I want the video to spread as much as possible, so hopefully the game can be improved at launch, because there's some sketchy stuff right now. But anyways, I'll be farming the Archaic Petra because this is a really powerful artifact set if you're going to use her as like a sub DPS with Novelette teams or with Pyro teams or with someone else. I could see this being really powerful, and because she sucks crystallized shards into her, that means that she's going to have a much easier time. Like the annoying part of this set is going to be gone. It'll just be gravy and big damage bonus, plus giving her some damage bonus as well, so it's not like it's complete waste on her, which is pretty cool. I'll save the rest of the build guide for when I actually get to test her and build her, and that's when we'll talk about everything like that. But don't worry, that guide will be released on day one, the moment that her banner drops, so make sure to subscribe for that. I'll be testing her with every single character I have, which is all but 3 characters in the entire game, so we're gonna have a really good time testing this character and really getting a good idea of how well she synergizes with the cast. You know, can you use her as a sub DPS in Wanderer teams if you feel like it, right? Obviously it's not gonna be optimal, but how does it go? I don't know. I'm gonna tell you. Can I use her with Raiden? We're gonna find out. For overall power and value, I don't think she'll be like a valuable pull, except for having a Geo DPS can be good if they add more and more elemental type checks like the Wolf Lord into the Abyss. It's nice to have at least one Geo character for that, but I don't think it's worth spending your 5-star on. Just using a Ningguang with Thrilling Tales or using Yunjin or something like that can be more than enough, or just having Zhongli. That's usually a better way to go. But I think her value will be high enough that her power will be high enough and her flexibility will be high enough that if you like her, you can find great teams to use on her. That's my guess. Again, we're going to find out when I actually get to test on her. But flexible characters are really nice for that, because although they might not be a character that you have to go out and get, if you like them and they're flexible, then you can find a way to fit them anywhere and have them feel great. So I'm really, really excited. Let me know if you are. Let me know if you're going to get her. The only question is whether I'm going to go for her weapon or not. We'll have to see. It's looking like a pretty good weapon banner.